Namaste, and welcome to this last part of the short talks about Metatron and Shiva. So in the previous video, the last video, number 4 that was, I ended by mentioning the subject of permutation systems based on the fact that in Genesis 17:1, Abraham was said to be 99 years old. I explained in the last video why that was important in the context of Metatron, but the 9, of course, should be clear by now. The 9 as the Shivite expression in Kabbalah. So I also pointed out in the previous videos that the system is linked to yoga in a way. So the philosophy of yoga, the attainment of spiritual equanimity, has an overlap with permutation systems, because really what you're doing with permutation systems is you're tracing the life force, the textual life force, along the numerical lines that are similar or the same. So as a result, the systems offer the possibility of experiencing the sameness of things through outwardly different objects. So in that way, it shows. It doesn't even only offer the experience of equanimity. It actually shows the Kabbalists how things are the same on a more essential level. Now, there are various ways of unveiling specific permutation systems, and Kabbalists use them for different reasons as well. Some use them to prove points, others use them purely to get mystical experiences, etc., etc. So, because that's a subject on its own, really, that I would like to talk about a bit more in depth, I would here only point out one such unveiling of a specific system, one such genesis, and share the rest for another time. So looking closely at the word Metatron, that all these videos are about, in Hebrew, the double tet at the heart of this word in Hebrew stands out immediately. Now, the tet is the 9th letter, and hence the double tet is significant when thinking about permutation systems. So the double 9 at the heart of Metatron, Abraham was 99 years old when he walked before God and was perfect, as we discussed in the last video. Then there's the 9 Sephira, of course, linked to Shaddai, and then the 9 from below would be Chokhmah, which we already saw, very important to Metatron. So the 9 as part of it, the name of Metatron, and part of the age of Abraham. Also the age that Abraham's name changed from Abram to Abraham, adding the letter He with the value 5, which is very significant. The 9 is important. So there are Kabbalists to whom the 9 was literally the fullness, so the fullness of the 9 linked to the first few words in Genesis. And as such, the 9, is a special subject, and of course that to me makes sense, since to me that's all Shiva. So even though this kind of dynamic interaction with the letters and the numbers might seem unorthodox or a bit weird or something like that, traditionally, this kind of interaction with the text, experiencing the text as a heavenly guide in its own right, and continuing the interactions in an extra textual way. This was completely widely known, completely accepted. Completely accepted to a certain degree, perhaps. It wasn't widely used in the Middle Ages, these kind of interactions, but one has to remember that all the great Kabbalists were rabbis, and as such they were the example of orthodoxy, and at the same time were the most revolutionizing people in the faith, which is interesting concept. A bit like the sadhus, I guess, to me at least, that are in an orthodox setting, very much part of Hinduism, but completely revolutionizing their interaction with the faith. So in Kabbalah, already in the Greater Hechalot, the texts belonging to the oldest stream of Jewish mysticism, Merkabah mysticism, and one of the first finding places of Metatron. I've discussed all this in the earlier videos, if somebody is interested in that. So already in the Greater Hechalot, permutation systems are being mentioned. So in these days, they were so incredibly important in the philosophy and the religious philosophy that some of them were actually seen as deities. They were written with the capital letters, were not written in Hebrew or Aramaic or Arabic. and yeah, were hence seen as gods in their own right that Metatron interacted with. And so just to say that permutation systems are not just a little thing on the side. At the roots, the oldest stream of Jewish mysticism, it was already very important. Now, an interesting link here is with the verse Exodus 23:21 that we dealt with earlier, of course, in the context of so Exodus 23:21 in the context of the very beginning of these short videos. The verse Exodus 23:21 namely ends with "For my name is in him." So here we go back to the first few videos on this topic. In Hebrew, Bekirbo, amounting to 314. Again, the link with Metatron and Shaddai, etc. So the same verse has the phrase "provoke him not," al tamarbo in Hebrew. Interestingly, though, in a Kabbalistic context, the word tamar can be seen as a reference to Tamura. In Hebrew, you have the root, usually 3 letters, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, but mostly 3. And the root can be conjugated in many different ways to make for nouns and etc. etc. So in this case, used in the Torah as al tamarbo, tamar as a verb, can be changed into tumura, which means interchanging, changing. So it's a word that's used by Kabbalists as a reference to permutation systems. And hence this little fragment of Exodus 23:21 can be read as the God of permutation is in him. And now here it becomes, of course, fascinating for the Kabbalists. So Exodus 23:21 not only referring to Metatron and Shaddai and the number 314, but also referring very strongly to permutation systems. So interestingly, the genesis of the particular system, which is called the Afba system, in which the Aleph is interchanged with the Pe, the F sound, and the Beit, the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, interchanged with one preceding the Pe, which is the Ain. So Afba, usually the name of a system will tell you which permutations are being made. So in the system, the Afba system, the one I chose to look at these topics, the tet remains unchanged. So of course I chose this system for that reason, because in Metatron the tet is written twice, unchanged, and in the age of Abraham, when everything really started changing in Abraham's life, he also was 99, 2 nines, unchanged 9. So in this, the Afba system, an example of particularly thought-provoking results, I thought, the unchangedness, the sameness of death in this world and the other world is being emphasized. Now there's another permutation system called the Achbal system, which is a bit special in its own way, but I'd like to mention this because it's based on the word tamar of the same verse, Exodus 23:21. So permuting the world, the name of the world of Metatron, Yetzirah, as we found out, permuting that by means of the Achbal system, the outcome is 474. Now, it's probably hard to remember, but I said in one of the previous videos that the numerical value of Da'at, the hidden Sphira, which is the place where Metatron is positioned as the epitome of a yogi, like balancing out male and female and all the things on the right and the left side of the tree of thought. Da'at, knowledge, the hidden Sphira Da'at, has the numerical value 474. So it's maybe hard to feel, because there's a lot of things that one has to keep in mind when just first being exposed to this. But to the Kabbalist, feeling the reason for a certain permutation system, applying that system, and then coming to something as particular as the 474 linked to Da'at and Yetzirah, and hence through the world of Metatron, that's, to the Kabbalist, that's seen as a confirmation, and they will be enthused to delve deeper into that subject. Now, the topic of permutation systems, and particularly I spoke here a little bit why I chose those 2 systems. I'd like to I'd like to go into that a bit more a bit deeper. Yeah, there's not many books written about why one uses a particular system and what it explains or what it expresses. Cordovero in Pardes Rimonim, one of the biggest overviews of Kabbalah up to that point, Moses Cordovero, wrote this book, and in this book he talks about all kinds of different ways of interpreting the text, the source text, and of course also about different permutation systems, but he only lists them. So to me, in my one but last book, I really went into this topic, explaining why you use a specific system and what it actually shows you, not just an addition of more information, because again, to me, that's not, if it's not alive, I'm not really interested. So in the next videos, I'd like to talk a bit more about what exactly is a permutation system. How does it involve the mystical interactions with the sacred living numbers? That's the way numbers are seen in Kabbalah. How it introduces numerical patterns of creation, and how they offer the Kabbalists the opportunity to embody extra personal powers and thereby becoming conscious of the world through more than one perspective. And again, here we have the concept of yoga, of equanimity, being in the world without being touched by the world in a way, of course. So as such, permutation systems are the core of a lot of mystical experiences, and which leads, of course, again back to practical Kabbalist Abraham Abulafia, who through his interactions with permutation systems experienced mystical death many times, and as far as he was concerned, the world to come. So Abulafia, through his interactions with the permutation systems, he is one of the few Kabbalists who does state why he uses the systems, but in an unorthodox way. So Abulafia doesn't say like, okay, I'm reading this and these are the energies I'm receiving and this is what I want to learn more about, and hence I pick that system because in that system there is a certain interaction between two numbers or letters that express the same. It was the opposite. For Abulafia, there had to be as little meaning as possible in anything he did. For him, anything connected to thought in general was just a distraction of his direct interaction with reality. So Abulafia describes in his, not many books, but he describes a few times how he feels he's permuting the letters and he starts feeling warmer and warmer, and then the numbers are hot inside him. Then he faints, trembles, and opens his eyes and sees himself standing in front of him, which is an interesting reference again to, that reflection has, of course, an echo of permutation systems in it as well. Abulafia went so far as to feel that he was the Messiah, and actually, went to the leader in those days to explain that he actually was the Messiah. Luckily, that all worked out to his advantage, and he didn't actually have to say that. But just to say that permutation systems for some Kabbalists are just guides, if one will, just as Metatron was a guide in the older Hechelot texts. The permutations can guide you to different perspectives of the same philosophy. So if you have a certain philosophy of life, a certain permutation system will express that, and you can use that to apply it to certain textual occurrences, to certain words that you find important. Apply the permutation system, see how the number that comes out speaks to you, and from there, amazing journeys evolve really. But all of that is for the next series, if I'm going to do one. So thank you for your interest in the overlaps between Metatron, the angel Metatron, and Lord Shiva. And I hope, of course, it was interesting. Thank you. Bye.